Welcome to sunny Newark Liberty International, where today we'll be departing from Terminal B on what will be the world's longest flight aboard Singapore Airlines Flight SQ21. The aircraft in question taking me on this long journey is the A350-900 ULR, or ultra long range, and it will be flying us non-stop from Newark to Singapore, which is 19 plus hours. Check-in was located on level 3, however, as you're about to see, we will enter in on a lower level. This is home to all the United check-ins. We need to head upwards to head to level 3. Premium Economy is the class I'll be flying, and Singapore's check-in was located on level 3 Zone E. This is an all-premium flight. That means there is no economy class. It was an interesting queue to say the least, given us all being premium flying passengers, and like I best described it, Premium Economy felt somewhat still like economy. Check-in times were quite lengthy because of the queue and the additional baggage. On top of that, there were issues with the systems. From Porter to Singapore Airlines, quite the stark contrast. We are headed downstairs now though, towards the gates and security, but this is also where you will find the air train. Newark's air train is hugely important to the airport, with the air train taking you to terminals, car parking, hotel shuttles, and much more. It's great for connectivity, and I would personally recommend it after having used it to get between my hotel and airport. Before security, Newark does welcome you to Terminal B with a Starbucks, and past that, a small array of food choices from Zara's bakery to Asian foods with Panda down all the way at the back. I also found there to be more than enough adequate seating for this little area before security. I would also recommend you definitely make a stop here, as you're going to see there are very limited options past security. We have a scheduled departure time of 10:25 AM, and we will be departing from Gate 53. So let's not waste any time, although we are quite early, and head through security to get ready to board SQ21. Following one of the more seamless experiences at security, aided thanks to the latest security screen technology, we're going to be heading to the gates, but not before exploring the various lounges that are available, which are accessible almost immediately after passing through security. As you'll see, we have the Star Alliance and the Singapore Airlines Business Class Lounge alongside Emirates's. British Airways can be found there as well. There's a minor duty-free area as well, but feel free to rewind and see how much aviation history you can spot on the walls as we exited security. I will tell you, it was an absolute abundance. As we continue to make our way down the duty-free, you can see how minimal it is and how the terminal space does feel relatively cramped in comparison to some of the more modern-day terminals that feature globally. Certainly a shock to me, as I had never flown through Newark at this point. This is my first time, as mentioned, flying out of Newark, so I wasn't too sure what to expect, although I think it's safe to say I definitely got the older parts. There is a bakery, a small resting room, and on top of that we have a news agency in this area. You can see on your screen as well now, a restaurant which features. There's not a whole lot of seating space, but if you would like a quick bite to eat, this is definitely the best place in this gates. One of the more focal points, though, I would say from this area is the UFO-like ceiling that I'm going to show you in a second, and it features windows that are quite striking, and it's a unique design. I must say I quite like it, and it brings a lot more natural light into the space that may be missing with thanks to the overall design. All the gates, as you can see, are pretty close together, and it'd be easy to see this getting quite busy when multiple flights are departing simultaneously. In this case, we're heading to B53, which is our gate, and in the background, let me know if you can spot it, but you should be able to see a British Airways 777, which is pushing back for a routine flight to London Heathrow. Here we are, my Singapore A350, operating as SQ21 through to Singapore with a departure time of 10:25 AM in the morning. Take a look at those engines. They'll of course be needing a good rest now, but before they gear up for 19 plus hours of non-stop flying. Here's that British Airways I mentioned earlier that will be headed back to London. I made a quick stop at the news agency, and there is a lot of New York paraphernalia around if you're looking for souvenirs that you may not have had the opportunity to purchase. United calls Newark home, and it's more than evident, with this just being one of the many planes featuring at the airport. Alongside these seats, Newark has charging ports which are close for seating and easy access, although in my opinion nothing beats the charging points that are being rolled out at each individual seat. There is that UFO dome I was talking about. Tell me that doesn't almost look like those UFOs you see in movies. The wide angle really highlights it, and let's do some beautiful panning from left to right to show you what is truly the only focal point of this part of Newark Liberty. What a lovely gate. It would certainly be a shame if I were almost turned away from my flight. Unfortunately though, that was the case. Let me pause and briefly explain. I have a severe peanut allergy and carry around an EpiPen. I make that known to ground and also airline staff on every flight. I selected Singapore because of recent good reviews. Upon letting the airport staff know, a 30-minute debate ensued over whether to turn me away or let me on board. Eventually, after much discussion, multiple forms being signed and being questioned quite strongly as to why I didn't select a nut-free meal, may I add, it wasn't available, I finally was allowed to board, not without a personal escort. So sadly, no boarding footage is available, but let's resume. But if you'd like to hear the full story, I definitely recommend heading over and listening to my podcast, which can be found on audio streaming platforms, as there's quite a lot more to it. Boarding is separated in two sections, both business class and premium economy, with business naturally being the first ones allowed on board. I must admit the boarding was a little bit chaotic to say the least. Fast forward, we're on the aircraft now, and I will be seated in 41C. This is a solo seat located towards the back of the cabin. These A350s are located in an all-premium configuration, but the final 3 rows of the cabin feature solo seats. They can be booked for an additional price, offering more storage space and comfort for the almost 20-hour journey that I believed were definitely worth it. This is my view for today, a decent wing view and what you'd expect for being almost the last row. Ahead of me, you're going to be able to see an example of what these solo seats storage bins have. You can see for the moment there we have the pillow located in it. 4 seats feature in the middle. As you can see, this is not a full flight, and we have the stock standard IFE directly in front of us. A very adequate screen I'll get onto reviewing shortly. To the right of that, you have a USB charging point. You can never get enough of those. And to the left, there's actually a very handy hook, whether you want to place a hat, a coat, or something else there. In the seat back pocket, we have the safety information. To reiterate, we are flying on today an Airbus A350-900 ULR, the ULR being for ultra-long range. Behind the safety card does feature a card explaining that this plane has Wi-Fi. I find Wi-Fi on most journeys very hit or miss, but in this case, the Wi-Fi was pretty solid throughout the duration of the journey. The back of the seat features a pull-down footrest, which means you can elevate your legs. I do quite like this feature on aircraft. It wasn't the most stable, but on the other hand, legroom was more than adequate, especially in comparison to economy. So having this only really enhanced the overall comfort for the seat. You can see legroom was more than decent. I don't really need to go any further than to say that I had a lot of space. For people curious, I am around 5'9", 5'10". A water bottle features in a water bottle storage, if you will, which is very handy if you have purchased drinks or potentially you collect them through the flight. A blanket is provided, and as you can see, we also get a care kit, which is becoming very much a customary when flying. This one features a mask, hand wipes, and something to wipe down electronic devices. Again, it is becoming very much a staple on journeys around the world. You also get a pillow, which I found very useful for eventually how I chose to sleep, and you do have 2 cup holders as well. Behind us, we have a reading light, which can be adjusted in its position and also its brightness. I'll be showing you an example soon. And as mentioned, directly to the left of me, we have the storage bin. It is quite big. It fitted my rolling suitcase, which is very handy. You could put many different things in here for the long flight. Once again, the view out the window featuring the Newark Liberty control tower. Now, our flight is starting to get busy and the cabin crew are performing their final checks before we will eventually push back. It is not, again, to reiterate, a full flight by any means, which you really can't complain too much about. Pushback was on time, and before we knew it, it was time to say goodbye to Newark Liberty and, for me, North America, a place I called home for the past 3 to 4 months. And now we're getting ready for our 19.5-hour journey on the world's longest flight. Seeing the safety video of an airline I've never flown is always fun. In addition, Newark Liberty does really offer superb views of the New York City skyline, which you'll be able to see momentarily. Tell me down below in the comments how many landmarks you can spot. Now, I have a question for you. What are your thoughts on United's updated livery? Here's one of their 737s being pulled, and I must admit, I really do like the updated livery. Then again, I am a sucker for blue liveries. Newark, though, is truly United Central, and you can see right now, look how many planes there are lined up, and this is only a small percentage. On top of these aircraft, we even had the opportunity to see one of the special liveries featured on the Boeing 757. I must say, alongside the Icelandair Heckler Aurora livery, this is probably one of my favorites on the 757. A great scheme overall. Now, you may have heard me make mention that Newark is the United Central, and this following clip that is on your screen now definitely highlights that. You can never have enough gates to park aircraft up, whether they're boarding or simply being parked to the side. Take a look at just how many United aircraft are lined up right now, from Boeing 777s to Boeing 787s, and on top of that, a rather mixed match in terms of the old livery and also the new. Again, I have to say, I definitely prefer the new livery. Now though, it is time to depart and say goodbye to the United States. So I'll be quiet and let you enjoy the takeoff on board this A350-900 service through to Singapore Changi. To confirm, using my wide-angle lens on the iPhone, I found the legroom really good. Only once reclined did it pose a little bit of trouble regarding space around my calves. The footrest, again, I really have to admit, after trialing for around 20 hours, can be very stubborn. I don't know if it was just mine, but you may definitely have trouble moving it up and down. But I have to say, it's still a nice feature, but potentially there may have been a better way to execute it, in my opinion at least. Given this being a solo seat, I did actually feel like I had many windows at my disposal, but here's another view for you of the storage bin, which does feature, again, just to the left of me. Very, very useful in almost all cases. Inside of there, we have premium headphones, which are provided for the duration of the flight, and this can be used on in-flight entertainment systems, and honestly, they were outstanding quality. They did not feel flimsy, like potentially most headphones you may get, and certainly didn't feel like they would break in a second. The material felt very good, and there was enough strength to them when I put them on my head that it didn't hurt my ears or again feel cheap. But look, at the end of the day, with the price of the ticket, you would really only expect good quality headphones that will work. One of the biggest annoyances I think when flying is having headphones or earphones given to us that do not really work. Shortly after takeoff, water was provided, and what a fantastic opportunity to show you the 2 cup spots. This is the tray table and how one would put it away. Of course, don't worry, this was totally not my 50th attempt doing it. I'm very much a seasoned expert with premium tray tables. A fancy cloth does feature on the headrest, and this also is going to give you another angle of that all-important reading light that I made mention of before. I didn't feel it was intrusive on my experience. Again, it can be moved either left or right. Just to the right is another USB connecting port, and also the port above with the 3 holes. This is where you put your headset in. Down near your thigh is the IFE remote, but I have to admit to you, I found this location to be somewhat problematic while seated, especially with my thighs, and trying to reach down and pull it out, it did get jammed on numerous occasions. I think potentially this could have been placed elsewhere for more easy access, but here's an example of how responsive it is. It is a very good remote at its very core. Lunch was served for me. It was a fruit platter, and for dessert, I had a little bit of kiwi fruit. Nothing beats fresh fruit, as someone with an allergy, it has to be said. Unfortunately, I could not show you the boarding, but let's give you a better view of the cabin now. With the 4 central seats, the last solo seat was for crew use only. This is my secondary lunch purchased at the news agency, which is a chicken roll and some classic crisps. The lavatory was clean and spacious. The exposed wood that you're going to get the opportunity to see very shortly really gave the toilet a luxurious feel. I can't believe, first of all, I'm reviewing the toilet, but I can't believe I'm also saying that it is a little bit luxurious compared to maybe an economy toilet. This seat does recline, as you can see, and has a calf rest that sticks out. It's not going to be anything like a lie flat bed, but it does help. Having put on a blanket, we were provided with a mask and some earplugs, and I can confirm that the mask was very much required, as the light controls throughout this flight was slightly all over the place, which made resting a little bit tricky. However, having the ability to have a mask did help massively. As you would expect for an Airbus A350 and nowadays any modern aircraft, mood lighting does feature. Above the seat, you have your routine storage bins. There is further reading lights if the one that comes attached to the seat is not adequate, or potentially you can't angle it the way that you would like. After lunch, the shades were closed and we began to relax for the first time. But the perfect opportunity now is to review the in-flight entertainment system for anyone that may be utilizing it on such a long journey, or potentially looking at jumping on board the world's longest flight. I found Singapore's IFE to actually be quite responsive, and it had all the latest films that you would expect from an in-flight entertainment system, from Top Gun Maverick to many more. They also have the Voyager 3D, which is powered by Panasonic Avionics Corporation, a very handy flight tracking system that once loaded offers you everything that you would want, from different angles, various different metrics, and the ability to change perspectives and zoom as much as possible. It's quite incredible to me to think that we can see exactly where we are thanks to this tracking system. There's even, on top of that, the ability to have a cockpit view, although I would say taking a look at the globe and our positioning is probably the cooler option of them all to me. There is also an area in the IFE that provides you with arrival information, but something I find with almost every airline, the arrival information is never truly updated or actually all that useful. There is a notification system implemented, a helpful addition if you want to understand when food is being served and such. The newest movies, to once again reiterate to you movie fanatics, were available. They were very heavily keen on promoting Top Gun Maverick, which, as we know, for 2022 was one of the biggest movies, and on top of that, for aviation enthusiasts, is very much universally loved and appreciated. They even went as far as having a Tom Cruise section on the in-flight entertainment. Now, if you're not the biggest fan of movies, that's completely fine. The in-flight entertainment system also offers you TV series, whether it be box sets, limited series, or even the opportunity to watch live TV, which I found really interesting. It was quite relaxing to me to at least put on, say, the BBC and fall asleep to their commentary on the world events while we were so high up in the sky and feeling so isolated at the same time. For those that want to relax a little bit more, the IFE does also feature games, although I did not have the chance to play any of these. On top of that, you have music, podcasts, and much more, although it must be said it's probably a better option to download Spotify or Apple Podcasts and download your music before your flight and actually listen to something you want to, as naturally with the music on board an IFE, you're very much limited. This is another view of the reading light, more so in the dark, and the various settings that you can use. It is quite powerful, therefore it's pretty helpful if you need to do work or you want some additional light. The headrest does move up and down and can be molded to your head if that means you want to lean left or lean right. It was very, very comfortable. For dinner was, you guessed it, another fruit platter with a side of salad. I was watching at the time, as mentioned, some BBC World Service, something I always keep up with even back home. The lights were completely turned off, bar of course the one person that decided to have their shade open, and we had some lovely rest. As we approached Singapore, the realization kicked in that not a lot happened on this flight. You'd think it would feel long for the world's longest flight, and while it did in some instances, the service was relatively sparse, something that on long-haul flights is definitely felt. But as you can see, this was quite the journey, thanks to the flight map rolling in. And as the world's longest passenger flight comes to an end, we approach Singapore for the first time in daylight for me. How would I summarize the flight? Well, an interesting one on a personal note. Being almost denied boarding onto the aircraft set the experience off on quite the wrong foot. But from there, it was mostly a faultless experience. The staff were kind for the second half of the flight, initially being very hesitant of my allergy, and the ride was very smooth. I've always wanted to fly the world's longest flight, and after doing so, I can once again reiterate the famous words: I'll always prefer a stopover. Ultra long haul, even in premium economy, does feel a bit much at times, and unless you're in a fly flat bed, it's hard to see it really being worth the time or money. But it has its purpose, and for some, it equally works. If you have an extra $150 and are planning to fly this route, I would highly recommend investing in the solo seat, as it did help, and while I didn't find the seat comfortable enough to sleep, although that is more so on me, I was able to use the storage bin to my left to be able to almost lean down. Now though, I'm going to be quiet and let you enjoy the landing. I'll ask one thing though, try and see if you can spot the scrapped Airbus A380 on approach. Next time you see this flight review continue, it'll be on board an A380 in premium economy for a red-eye journey down to Sydney, Australia. Thank you sincerely for following along on the journey. I'm certainly not a flight reviewer, but I hope at the very least you enjoyed some of it and were able to take something valuable from the trip itself. Thank you very much for watching, do take care and be safe, enjoy the landing, and I will see you next time, whether it's in another flight review or potentially more analysis here on the channel.